one of the agencies that contacted me through you, Ralph, their current agency is just launching every goddamn day a new campaign because it works for 3 days and then it dies. So they're just every 3 days restarting. And that's what they said to me yesterday on the call. And I still can't believe they told me that.
It's agencies like this that if you're listening to this and you're shopping for one or thinking about one, stay the hell away from them.
We don't normally get Ralph this riled up.
Well, it pisses me off because there's 42,000 agencies out there, guys, and most of them are Hello and welcome to the Perpetual Traffic Podcast. This is your host, Ralph Burns. This is the show where we share cutting-edge strategies in acquiring leads and sales for your business so you can achieve your vision. And today, Qasim, pretty excited because this guy we got on the show today is, I don't know any other word to describe him aside from a firecracker. You know, he's the Serbian firecracker. I don't know. We'll have to figure out like a good name for him, but
sounds like the bad guy from a Bruce Willis movie. It's like Bruce Willis has been called in to hunt down the Serbian firecracker.
It's the Serbian firecracker. We're going to be getting into a lot of cool stuff here today, and I think airing out some gripes along the way is my sense, because we can get pretty passionate about this sort of thing, like the mistakes that people are making in their online marketing, and we're pointing our finger directly at you, the crappy agency owner who has been misguiding a lot of businesses that listen to this show, and so much so that we are bringing in Ivan on today's show for his unique take on it, because he sees a different type of client than maybe we do at Tier 11. Now, the reason why I'm bringing on Ivan here today is that when somebody comes to Tier 11, we have a couple of different things that we do. The first thing is we assess whether or not we can help them and how we can help them. And what that solution is, it's different for every single company. And so our solution might be a hybrid between our solution at Tier 11 and some of the solutions that we can offer through Ivan and his organization. So that's the reason why I think I'm excited to have Ivan on here, because he's seeing a lot of things that maybe we're not seeing in some of the local, smaller regional businesses, maybe on the smaller end, maybe under 3 million in revenue. And we see a lot of different stuff above that revenue. So solutions are oftentimes very different, but a lot of the problems are kind of the same, is what we found. And I know you guys see that a fair amount inside Solutions 8. You see, other agencies sort of leading people astray, or them following the Google path, like what Google tells them. And then all of a sudden they're at a point where, oh my God, like this whole thing is a mess. I need help. And they reach out to you. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. Yeah. I think Google is my best lead generator on a long enough timeline, because they lie to a bunch of people, get them all wrapped around the axle, screw everything up. And then they come to us after the fact and like, help me fix what Google broke.
Yeah, which is true. So in a lot of cases with us, and you'll hear Ivan on this in today's interview, is that we're usually coming after another agency has broken down or broken the trust of that business. And so on today's interview with Ivan, we're going to be talking about the 5 big mistakes that you're probably making in your online marketing. That might be because you have an agency that's running you down the wrong path, that we certainly will talk about that quite a bit, or it's your internal team that maybe you don't have the visibility that you want, or maybe it's you that's doing the marketing right now. So 5 big things to look out for. And really, these are the 5 biggest things that I think myself, Qasim, and Ivan all see, but we see it at different levels in different businesses. And if you can cure these 5 things, we might even give you a 6th one here on our interview with him. I think you'll really be on the path to scaling and growing your business and ultimately achieving your vision. So make sure that you do watch this on perpetualtraffic.com/YouTube over on our YouTube channel. Check us out there. So stick around. We're going to get into the interview right after this quick break. All right, we are here with Ivan, who's been a longtime partner of Tier 11. And like I had mentioned before, he's somebody that you might actually talk to. If you talk to us originally at Tier 11, we sort of figure out what your assessment is and then utilize a lot of his services as a sister organization to Tier 11. And he's been a partner of ours for over 4 years now. So without further ado, we're going to bring Ivan into the studio here and talk about the 5 biggest mistakes that most businesses are making in their online marketing. So before we get into it, let's talk about maybe what some of the agencies that we see right now are doing wrong. Like, what are you seeing when they come to you? And I know you have sort of this great analogy about how if you're the third or fourth agency that they've worked with, what it's kind of like and how hard that is. And I think this is a hard road to be on for a lot of businesses because there are so many agencies out there, so many options. But by the time they get to a good agency, sometimes they're so jaded, working with them is really challenging. Tell us a little bit about that.
Most of the time when we talk with companies, they are really stressed out and freaked out because they had really bad experiences before us. So you can imagine it's like going on a date with a girl and she was like lied to, beaten by the last 3 boyfriends. And now I'm supposed to have a normal relationship with her. So developing a normal relationship after so many bad experiences is becoming more difficult, especially as the costs of everything keep rising. People feel that they don't have anyone to trust, and that a smart investment is almost impossible. While I think it's not.
Trust is almost like you are on shaky ground just coming in as the boyfriend. I'm trying to tell him, hey, I'm actually a really nice guy. I'm really not going to beat you and get to that. Like, I can't even imagine being like a boyfriend that would actually do that. But the point is like, you're inheriting damaged goods to a certain degree, so it makes it even more challenging for a really good agency like yours to show its value and show its worth because they're always going to be skeptical because they're scarred.
Exactly. And especially like when they get so many emails about like this is an issue you have or that's an issue. A lot of my clients get a bogus copy and paste email with some issues that don't exist, and then I have to spend a couple of hours showing them that what they got wrote on the email doesn't see, like it's not there. So even that is becoming a more and more apparent problem in the industry.
So you mean I can't go to clutch.co and look up a good agency and just get one there, guys?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not like those reviews are for sale.
Why isn't that a valid place to find an agency if you wanted to hire one?
Well, it wouldn't be that hard to fake that you're somebody. Like they say that they have an interview, and I talked with them multiple times. Like I never invested my time into developing Clutch, and then when they offered us to work with them and develop like the incredible lead gen system with them and everything, and I tell them we do not service like even Europe at that point. We didn't service just the United States. And then they send me 2 leads from Tunisia and Egypt, and I'm like,
well, those are
fuck
good.
off! I'm not gonna work with you. Like just
Those
instantly just deleted every single contact from them. So that was my experience. That was 5 years ago, so it's probably better now, but you know.
So here we are bitching about what other agencies do. And I think if you're listening to this as a director of marketing or a CMO or even an owner operator, like these are things to be watching out for.
Yeah.
One of the most recent examples that I've had is actually a great company with a tremendous vision. We talk about this a lot now, Qasim, on Perpetual Traffic. Like they've got it dialed in, but they are locked into an agency that will not allow them to see their ad account, will not give them any insights into what they're doing. And they demand from the client, this big $60 million company in a very profitable area that they're growing like a weed. They're on the Inc. 5000 list. It's a great company. Like I said, great vision. They won't even do the creative. They tell them what to do without any insight as to what's working, what's not working. And they've held them ransom with a 12-month contract that locks them in, and they have zero visibility. And we're looking at this saying, first off, this is wrong. It's not right. But
That
thirdly, it's really hard for us to assess what they're doing so we could actually say, hey, here's what we were going to do for you, because they own the ad account. They own all the assets. They're locked into this agreement, and they made this mistake. unfortunately, that's holding back their business. Now, the other part to this is that they have an entire offline business that's doing extremely well, which is great. But their online portion is being hampered, basically being there's a ceiling put on it because of this agency who is diabolical. It's like it's wrong to do it that way. It just pisses me off to think about it because, like I said, they have a really solid business model. They're purpose driven. And even in spite of that fact, they're still growing like a weed offline, which is great to see. But they're like, we're kind of getting screwed by our agency. And what can you do to help? Like, well, we're putting together a plan for them right now to help them, but we can't get real insights because we can't get access to the ad account. We can only sort of give a broad overview of what they're doing based upon their ad library. And it's agencies like this that if you're listening to this and you're shopping for one or thinking about one, stay the hell away from them. And I don't care if you hire us or Solutions 8. Exactly. It's like, it doesn't matter if you hire us or anybody that's here on today's show. It's just plain wrong. And that's an old model. And it's a model that the platforms really hate as well, especially Meta. That's the reason why they don't have a partner manager. Their agency is just a scumbag agency. So things to watch out for here. So sorry, Qasim.
Here's where I'll own the only time I'd ever own assets is if I'm the one footing the bill for the ad spend. So for instance, when we did real estate lead generation, it was my money. It's my account. Other than that, it's criminal. It's criminal. I'm against long-term contracts, but I totally understand why some agencies choose to do that. And the business model makes sense. That's a paradigm shift. That is what it is. And there's some agencies that have to, especially when they do a bunch of stuff that, isn't performance-based yet. But if you don't own your own IP, your own accounts, the work created, the work product, that's criminal.
I can give basically a list to people when they talk to agencies. Like, first, what Ralph said, like the main thing you need to eliminate is them owning your assets. Then the next thing is, what are they solving? If they just do the media buying, that means that they don't know anything else except that. But another thing is that they're going to always have a conventional scapegoat saying that the website doesn't work, the product doesn't work, or the creatives are bad. So that's one of the reasons why we developed the system that everything is in-house. So when my media buyer has a problem, he directly contacts the developer that can solve it, and we're all under one roof. While if you have 5 different agencies disjointed, it's just going to be a nightmare actually syncing, getting to a point where you get a really good refined product because it takes too long. So, and same goes for the creatives. Like, you can imagine how longer it takes if you have an outside partner developing the creatives and then you send him the feedback, because we test the creative like 4 to 8 times before we finish testing. And those small iterations, like, it's just a couple of things, like a color or a font or something moved around. It makes a difference, but if we talk about actually implementing it, it's too complex with multiple teams. So if they 100%. Don't have that, that's another red flag. But the last red flag that I continuously see is that nobody that's a small agency managed to adjust to the iOS 14.5 update. Like, I just see so many agencies not understanding MER, not understanding tracking. Like, I talked to a guy that's like, I'm a professional at this and that, and he's like, man, not a single UTM anywhere. Or, for example, exclusions. That's the one thing that you continuously see everywhere. People running campaigns that work for 3 days and then they die. And I'm like, of course, when you start hitting the same people and over again, because the agency doesn't understand how the algorithm works. One of the agencies that contacted me through you, Ralph, so their current agency is just launching every goddamn day a new campaign because it works for 3 days and then it dies. So they're just every 3 days restarting. Right. And that's what they said to me yesterday on the call. And I still can't believe they told me that.
Unbelievable. And the reason they don't know why that is. So what was your diagnosis on that one in particular? We're launching a brand new campaign every 3 days because after 3 days it dies. Like, what was your diagnosis there?
Exclusions. If you don't have exclusions for purchasers, website visitors, or anything else, what's going to happen is that the algorithm is going to focus to the highest chance of conversion, also like known as lowest hanging fruit. So what's going to happen is if it's going to continuously start hitting the people that reacted at the start of the campaign. So it's basically going to end up being some kind of weird remarketing campaign. And I saw campaigns that are like wide or broad campaigns that had like 5 frequency. And I'm like, this is not broad, dude. Just because you didn't add a remarketing audience doesn't mean that the algorithm is going to listen to your wishes.
All right, so let's break that down for a second because you bring up a huge point. So you're talking about broad audience targeting. So depending on where you're at, this might be an audience of 200, 300 million, maybe 100 million, like big
Yep.
audiences, correct?
Hmm.
And so these guys are launching ads. And here's something for you to look out for. And I'm talking to my directors of marketing, my VPs of marketing, and even the media buyers. Is like if your agency has this going on, this is a huge red flag because all they're doing is spoon feeding you back results. And probably those results look pretty good. But the fact that they have to swap out every 3 days means that in a broad audience, all the algorithm is doing is going out and finding the people who have previously bought from you, previously opted in, previously landed on your page, the warmest traffic possible. And that's why when we talk about our ACC model, the awareness, consideration, conversion model, which is much broader, where you're actually expanding the market through top of funnel content, you can expand your audiences inside those broad audiences by getting more potential conversion audiences. But the key to all this is the exclusions, is excluding everybody who knows anything about whatever you've ever done. And that could be page views, that could be Instagram page visitors, that could be people who have engaged with your videos, that could be custom audiences who have landed on your page. This is leads, this is buyers all time. You got to take them out of your audience. It's not perfect because they
Yep.
always, Facebook especially, will find people who are familiar with your brand in some way that you haven't excluded. It's just the algorithm is that smart. But if you're not doing that as a base level, and every single plan, every single growth plan we ever have done, and you probably see this as well, Ivan, is that the previous agency has all those audiences mashed in together and they're getting, oh, look at my ROAS. I'm getting a 6x ROAS. We just did a strategic growth plan for a client who ended up going with another agency. I don't know why, because they're idiots. But the point is like their current agency was getting a 6x ROAS. And we're like, your first couple of weeks with us, you're probably going to get down to a 2. They're like, oh my God, how is that possible? I'm like, well, it's because they're selling to your pre-existing clients. Like we're going to pull out all those people and actually start selling to new customers. And it's going to be painful for your first month. Okay. So, well, what what do you mean? My first month and my first 2 months, you guys aren't going to be getting me results. I'm like, yeah, that's the way that it works in new customer acquisition, because we have to rebuild everything from scratch and undo what your idiot agency was doing prior to this, or your idiot team. Now I'm ranting. But at the very least, if you're not doing exclusions, it's a major red flag. Agree, disagree, Ivan?
1,000,000%.
We don't normally get Ralph this riled up, Ivan, just so you know. This is
Well, it pisses
Give
me
me time.
off because there's 42,000 agencies out there, guys, and most of them are shit.
Yep.
They really are.
You know what's
Unfortunately,
sad? Just coming their defense, most of them are just like amateurs. It's not like they're
Amateurs.
bad people. They're just like, it's a kid in his basement who took a course, or a guy who lost his job and is trying to figure something out. And
Yep.
man, does my heart go out to him. But like,
I get it.
don't tell people you can do stuff you can't do, especially when, to a point that Ivan made during the pre-record, like media buying used to be something you could learn in a weekend. Truly.
Right.
It's triple PhD shit now. You can't step up and be like, yeah, I can do heart surgery.
Yeah.
Like that's murder.
I'll do a weekend class on thoracic surgery. Yeah, that's fine. I could do that.
So it's just gotten so much more complex, but the educators in the space and the narrative that we've sold hasn't necessarily caught up to that.
The barrier to entry is less than zero. And a guy
There's no
once that
barrier.
I met at a conference, literally it was three months ago. It was that Meta Performance Summit. So he came up to me. He's like, I hadn't met him. He's heard me talking to somebody else. At that point in time, he hadn't really watched any of our YouTube videos, but he recognized who I was. He's like, hey, you're Ralph Burns from Perpetual Traffic. I'm like, yeah. He's like, thank you so much. You're the agency that has launched. No, you're the podcast that has launched 1,000 agencies. And I'm like, oh, shit. Like, we're partially responsible for it, to a certain degree.
You invented the modern Facebook agency. That was your fault.
Modern Facebook agency.
The modern
yes,
Facebook
was
agency
my fault.
is Tier 11's template.
Well, it's me, Kurt Molly. I don't know what he's doing these days. Haven't talked to him in a while. And Jason Horning. Like, it was the three of us. I will give joint credit to We were the first
The
3 Facebook ad
catastrophe, the
agency.
Frankenstein that you created. Just
And
these
now everybody thinks they can do
drones.
it. But
Yeah.
the point is like, that's fine, because I think a lot of people have started agencies to escape the corporate life and all the other sorts of things. That's fine. I get that. You got to make ends meet. But for a business owner, it means there's 40,000 agencies out there that absolutely suck because they do all this stuff and we see it every single day. Ivan, you see it. I know we work awfully very, very closely together. You're the one agency that we actually work with where we're like, hey, if you're a regional, local, or a smaller business, Ivan's your guy. And come through us first, and then we'll go to Ivan because you guys get it. But so few agencies do it. Same thing on the Google side. If somebody is coming, for really high level Google strategy, we go to Solutions 8.
I can give you an example for a Google red flag. Like Google gives you like account optimization score up to 100%.
If you have 100%, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, like, every goddamn day they're like, we are not sure if our Google agency is doing a good job, and like it's 30% optimized by Google stands. And I'm like, it's there. Like you can check your own agency, just educate like yourself a little tiny bit, and then if you're working with somebody bad, it's just gonna start crumbling around them. So I think it's a double whammy. That's the problem: lack of knowledge in the average person running the company regarding the digital side of the ads, and then the other side being all of the people that dropped the course for $99.95 during COVID for media buying and Facebook ads.
So what's aside from the exclusion part to it, like what's the biggest mistake you see businesses making right now? When you talk to them about like an audit, doing a growth plan, like what, aside from that, like we all see that. I see traffic typically, if I'm just looking at it from the meta side, the biggest mistake is traffic is all mashed together. They don't break it out. I mean, yeah, the algorithm is getting smarter so that it can actually break out individual pieces of content depending on where they are on the customer acquisition path, whether they've watched a percentage of your video, whether they've opted in, whether they visited your site, whether they've added to cart, whether they've gone to the checkout, like all that. Yes, you can slice that up and create content for each individual part of the customer acquisition path. That's one of the things we see. Exclusions are a huge part of that. So let's take that out of the equation. What's the biggest mistake that you see business owners making, especially when it comes to paid media?
So UTM and server-side tracking is something that we continuously see as a problem, and those two you can find both on Shopify and like Google Analytics and everybody else. Like it's all free online to learn. So you can imagine that a lot of people, like after the iOS update, just don't see any sales. So a lot of the times the sales are coming in from a campaign, but because they don't have UTMs and server side, it shows 0 in Facebook's ads panel. So they're continuously turning off really winning ads, and overall Facebook is now massively underreporting their results. So if you don't have that setup, you're flying blind, and most people are just like, okay, this is how that's the new reality, and it's not. It's just the lack of them actually sitting down and doing homework. That's one example. And then regarding how you do your performance reviews, you have to do them weekly. I've been talking to agencies after agencies, and they all do like a monthly report. And I'm just going to be straightforward. Before we met Ralph and before we were a part of the training he provided to us, we were doing a monthly report as well, and the clients were getting pissed off because they weren't sure what we were doing or why. But now that we do, like for the last 3 years, we've been doing the weekly report system, it just became a much smoother experience for both sides. Yeah. So overall, tracking, measuring, testing, those are the things. Everybody wants to be an influencer marketing agency after TikTok dropped because like it looks simpler and easier. And they think that if they just get the viral ad, that's all done. But what after that? We worked with a huge company called My Intent that had Kanye West on the magazine. I forgot what, I think the New York Times or something like that, the man of the year. So you can imagine they started getting a flood of people buying their products, but a lot of different issues, tracking, overlap, not enough exclusions. And it was only the poor business owner doing everything. So it's no wonder he had everywhere holes because he couldn't do it himself. But at one point, when the big Kanye moment started dropping off, all of a sudden they became unprofitable with $250,000 of ad spend a month.
They were unprofitable.
Things like that.
No kidding.
So they
One of the
started.
worst things that can happen to a business is massive spikes in success when they
Exactly.
don't have the ability, when they don't have visibility. They don't have the ability to determine where it's coming from, because you scale up in order to fulfill those spikes, right?
Yep.
And scaling up is a dangerous prospect in business regardless of what's going on. But you scale up fulfillment or service or, whatever. And then now that you've scaled up, you need to continue that, but you don't know which of your levers worked. And so it's this horrible situation where you're going to do the same thing you just did, which is just throw a bunch of money at everything, and then it works, but you don't know which lever's working, and then you scale up again, and when you finally get to a position where, okay, we've scaled, but now we need to be profitable, you have no idea how to cut in. It's a near impossibility to go figure that out. Like, you can't unscramble those scrambled eggs.
Exactly. And one thing I would
Good point.
point out is with the stock market, it's easy to be winning when it's a bull market, when everybody's winning.
Right.
And of course, when COVID was there, and even before COVID, the economies were strong. There was a lot of money being thrown around for COVID. And
Ivan,
now the
here's
money
the theory. Here, I want to challenge you. I lose money in bull markets all the time. I've lost money. I would
raging
surprise
bull
you
markets?
at my phenomenal adeptness to lose money regardless of the market.
How about
Yeah,
bubble
well,
markets? Bubble
Yeah,
markets.
dude. There's no
hard to
market I can't lose money. I'm a miracle whiz kid.
sorry to hear that, but I meant towards all of the people that were doing like acting that they knew something when they weren't.
Right.
Sure.
It is true. It is
Like we
100%.
lose all, like we test and lose nonstop, but we learn. That's the
Right.
main difference.
And I think communicating that, and I'm going to put this as point number 4, is like that's related to the weekly report. Like we talked about, like all the things to watch out for when it comes to your agency, and then specifically things like exclusions is number 1. Like this is a mistake most companies make, so that's our biggest one. Number 2 is I don't want to gloss over it because it's an important point. Is server side tracking, UTM's. And for us, like absolute standard of care before we even apply any third-party tracking is Conversions API.
Exactly.
So if you are not doing that, and I think that this was your second point, I just think it's important for people to understand this, is that we just got off a call with Meta last Thursday, and they gave us a scorecard on like how we're doing. And I'm not on here to brag, but I told the company 6 months ago, I said, every customer of ours is going to have Conversions API, because all it does is it helps our visibility and the optimization inside the Meta account. And we have a 100% conversion rate on Conversions API, meaning 100% of our customers are on CAPI. And then she showed us versus the rest of the industry, versus the rest of agencies, it was like 40%, Ivan.
Wait, 40% of agencies have their customers on, or 40% of customers?
40% of the agencies that she deals with versus us have Conversions API. I'll have to double check the number. It was a lower number. It was below 50%, meaning they're not even using that.
Yeah, it's
And
like less than half of people want to know the truth.
right. It's like they're not even doing sort of the base level, which from an optimization, reporting, and day-to-day management standpoint is table stakes when it comes to beta ads right now. There's no doubt about it. So having that, and then having good hygienics on your UTM parameters, like old school UTM parameters, I think is also table stakes. And we see that all the time in all of our audits. It's like,
And there
where
is
are
a
your
reason.
UTMs? And it's easy to do.
Yeah.
And so
There is a reason why Meta added the setup option. Like it's one button for you to go through all of your UTMs in a second.
yeah,
Why did Meta do that if it's not important? It is important. And Meta shows you that through their actions.
yeah, it's crazy. So that's number 2. Number 3 is the weekly report, which is just sort of keeping in touch with, what's going on, like your internal team. Like forget about the agency side just for a second here. Like if you're a CMO or a director of marketing, you should have your internal team be giving you a weekly report on your spend, how things are going. I mean, obviously you're the person in charge. I would have to think that would be at least table stakes or just like bare minimum for any internal business. But for a lot of companies, Like the company that we're auditing for the $60 million brand, they have a monthly report. That's all they get. So in between then, no communication, no back and forth, no telling them, hey, we tried this, we're going to try this. Somebody once told me that it doesn't matter if you succeed. It matters to me that you're always trying to figure out what worked, what didn't work to get to that next level of test so that you ultimately will succeed. And I think a lot of agencies fall down there. They're afraid to admit their mistakes, not even their mistakes, just the stuff that doesn't work. But I think that is really, really important to communicate back. It gives transparency. It's the right thing to do. But it also tells like, hey, we're not going to succeed on all of our ads. And, Ivan, I always say like, if you're failing 70% of the time in this business, you're actually doing pretty well.
You're doing 20% better than most people.
Yeah, you absolutely are. So communicating that, but learning from it. Hey, we did this test. It didn't work out. Here's what we learned, and here's what we're going to do next. Customers want that. They want to know that is usually communicated through a weekly report.
Exactly. 100%.
So what else? What are the other mistakes that you're seeing right now from your perspective? We've got those big three.
So an easy moneymaker for most brands is going to be combining email and text messages. One thing that we added a year and a half ago, and we managed to build a partnership and then acquisition with an agency that was just two people that did email and text messages. So you can imagine that most people are focusing everything towards email collection. So most pop-ups on the website is going to ask for your email, but then think about your Facebook ad account. That email that you use to sign up for stuff is for sure, like 99% sure that it's not the email you use on Facebook, because Facebook spammed you until you stopped using that email. That's the story for almost everybody. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine that people continuously upload those CSV files to the custom audiences, and then it's only like a 30% match rate. And they're all like, oh my God, why is that? Well, just use phone number is going to be 90% because your phone number is the one thing you need for two-factor. So if you don't have the right phone number, you're not in that Facebook account.
Yep.
So that's one thing that we started
major point right there. Say that one again, actually, for the audience, because I don't know as if people realize that, but like it's the capturing of the phone number. I know you do this almost exclusively, especially even on e-commerce, which is really, really cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. So state that one again.
So the main thing is actually matching the data in Facebook's database. If you get data that Facebook doesn't have, you're not going to match it. So when you're collecting phone numbers, you're going to have a 90% chance or even more some cases to match with what Facebook has in the database because of the two-factor authentication. While if you just use the emails, that they have, the chance of them actually being the right target is next to impossible, especially if you're doing B2B or lead gen. Most people are going to use a business email. Like if you don't use for Facebook your email, Ralph, right? Because it doesn't make any sense. It just gets spammed.
Yep.
So that's one thing. But another thing is that the email is continuously losing its power. Less and less people are opening it. And by the year, it's just eroding. Like there are people that are still killing it with it. And it is old but gold and all of that. But when you think about it, the average industry open rate is 10%. While text messages are 90%. So what we did is we just combined text messages and email, so we keep top of mind. And then we saw that when we start doing text messages, people start opening emails because it ends up who knows where. And like you can imagine, Google Gmail has like those 4 columns now, like the inbox and promotional suggest. Like I don't even understand what's the difference between them. I just know that I now need to check 4 different inboxes.
Yep. Yeah. So you do both. I mean, don't forget about email. Email is still important, but if you're relying on it exclusively, SMS you should absolutely be capturing that. So what's the mechanism for doing that? Do you do that? Like, let's say I'm selling an e-commerce product. I'm selling a physical product, and either I bounce off the site or try to bounce off the site, or maybe I cart abandoned, or like, where is the email and or the SMS going to be implemented? What's a strategy there that people can deploy?
So it's really going to depend on the overall bigger picture strategy. Some businesses can give away a discount, others can't. So it really depends on how you're going to attract the person. But overall, I just think that when you're asking for an email, ask for a phone number, and that's it. Don't just do one or the other. You have to do both. And
What's
that's
interesting about that, most browsers, including mobile now,
yep,
pre-populate. And so if you're asking for an email and I already plan on giving you my email, if my phone number pre-populates, and I'd say that it, just guessing does for 51% or more of people,
yep.
right? Like the majority of people, it's harder for me not to give you my phone number now because I have to go in and delete it. And so if you've earned enough trust for me to give you my email, I'm just going to hit submit because I'm like, all right, dude, you've got it anyway. I know I can opt out of SMS anytime. I'm more likely to opt into an SMS request because SMS filters are so much more, what would you say, reliable. Like if I say stop on an SMS, I never get it again. I don't know about you guys.
Exactly.
On email, there's so many people I've sent to spam for 30 years. And for
Yeah.
Yep.
whatever reason, they're still landing in my inbox.
Even when you message them directly, you still get the messages. It's
Yeah.
just unstoppable at some point. So you have to actually keep on changing your email address.
Right. So make both compulsory is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Email and
That's
phone.
that's just a minimum. There we work with a fair bit of brands, and for example, the leather brand that we just started talking to, Ralph. Um, they have they had before, like whenever they drop something they just sell out and they don't do text message marketing. And you saw that there's a lot of different brands. I think it was Kylie Jenner and Supreme that did like those drops that were limited edition, so you develop scarcity. But the best way to advertise scarcity is going to be the text message, because you don't wait to respond to text message. Like
Yeah.
maybe, but like most people don't. So combining that with a couple of different scarcities is one option. Another option I like is also offering limited special discounts for people that give the phone number. So
Mhm.
yes, I'm going to give you a little bit of a better deal compared to everybody else, especially if something is limited time. Then they go to email, to text message.
Yeah, I saw somebody do a flash sale opt-in. They said, "Hey, thanks so much for opting in. And incidentally, we do a flash sale once a week or once a month or whatever it was, but it only goes out via SMS because emails just
Exactly.
sit forever." And that's a really good. You need a reason. Anytime you're going to provide any level of scarcity, the scarcity has to be real. Otherwise, it just pisses me off. And that's real. It'd be like, yeah, of course, a flash sale would be text-based.
But it's urgency and scarcity together. That's why you need to do the text messages, because they're
Yeah.
faster to deliver directly to your eyes. Like you're going to react faster to that.
Well, and anybody who's already doing email well, here's what's funny. And tell me if you guys have had this experience. For my clients that are doing email well, they actually get more fatigued at the prospect of adding SMS because they're like, man, I already figured out a model. Why am I going to go change what's working? And in my mind, it's like you're not. You're actually 10 steps ahead of the process. Just do the exact same thing. Just make the word smaller.
It's
I would
not an
just look
either
at it as
or.
panel, more firepower.
Yeah.
I think people are worried, and this is a scary thing, and we just did a case study on this, is that they're worried if they actually do add in SMS, they might sabotage that email side of the equation. Like we just did the case study here on the show where we showed that basically for every lead that we capture for this company turns into $1,500 of revenue through it mostly happens through email. So that's a great scenario, but I know a lot of business owners would be like, "Ooh, I don't know if I want to do SMS because my email is working so well." That's a great
Right.
position to be in. It's not an either or because it's an and.
Yep.
You know,
I just wanted to add one other thing, that there's a lot of agencies that are just doing either like Shopify or email or SMS. And the main issue is, again, it's all disjointed. And I'm going to give you an example. 2019, we just started working with Bear Performance Nutrition. It's led by Nick Bear, who is a monster like on YouTube. And he's just insane. Like he's a really good business guy. But we had one goal from him, and that's one return on ad spend for prospecting, and he doesn't give a fuck about anything else. Like either that or you're gone. And I'm like, okay, but we have a major issue because anybody that lands on your website gets 10% off on the first purchase. So how am I gonna get the money from that? Like, dude, think about it. And he disregarded us for the first 2 months. So we ended up actually having to point out that the email pop-up was actually stealing all of the sales, because when they in order for them to get a discount like that, they have to open their email and click to a new link that doesn't have the tracking info from Facebook. And so we ended up actually developing a system where we track the amount of people that ended up being in that email. And I see a lot of businesses with pop-ups not tracking the lead event to the pop-up. So that's value still brought by the ad to your business. You need to track those secondary conversions. And in his case, we had like two different measurements for desktop and mobile. And it ended up being 70 to 80% of the people that signed up to the email became a purchaser. And then through that, we managed to show him that we were way above one ROS. But at the end, he didn't care. So, yeah.
Didn't matter. Yeah. So
yeah, but we managed to solve that for them.
So as your fifth and final tip here is that track everything along the entire conversion path, like not just purchases, but leads, and see how that actually flows through to create customers in the end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It all makes it like everybody has their own speed. Like some people are just gonna come right away and buy, and that's a person that might just have so much money they don't care. And then you might have a person that like is his last dollar and he's thinking about what he's gonna do, and of course he's gonna think a bit longer. And another thing that they wanted to point out, it's 100% the whole world is in a recession. We're all having less and less money, so that's like again the between the bull market and the regular market, like. It's getting harder to get a sale. People are spending less and people are thinking more before they buy. So the main thing is showing them all of the information they need. I can add a sixth one if you want. And that's most businesses don't have any trust signs, trust symbols, guarantees, nothing. So they have this amazing, organic, natural product, and it's all like written in a blob of text. So that's not going to be cut it. You need to have really good visual elements like icons, visual aids, things like that. Another option is guarantees, like 100% money back guarantee, no questions asked. A lot of businesses have that, but it's on the shipping policy. And it sounds stupid when they said that, like that they don't use their biggest benefits on the product pages and everything. Because for some reason they think that the person is going to do the research themselves. Well, we all know it's not the case. They're just going to go to the other guy that posted a nice picture where it says organic.
What would a good example of a guarantee be? Just give our listener.
So a lot of the clothing companies offer free shipping on the returns as well. And
Dude, free shipping is already hard enough. Free shipping and free returns is insane.
Yeah.
Like I think about that from a business owner's perspective. It's like, how on earth do you do that? And here's what's crazy is I take people up on it. I'll order, like if I'm shopping for clothes online, I'll order 3 knowing I'm going to keep 1.
Right.
You know, and I can't be the only person doing that. So to the point that Ivan's making, like if you have those crazy offers, make them front and center. Don't hide them behind, whatever it is that you're hiding things like that behind.
So I want to thank you all for listening this week. Make sure if you ever do want to utilize the services of Ivan and his team, head on over to tier11.com/chat or just tier11.com. Hit the big pink button, fill out the application, and we will figure out what the next best step is for you as far as just your needs assessment, and whether that involves Ivan and his services or whether it's, full ups tier 11. Sort of depends on where you're at with your business. So check that out over at tier11.com. And thank you for listening for this week. Make sure you subscribe and leave a rating wherever you're listening, and let us know what we can do better over at perpetualtraffic.com/better. Check out me on LinkedIn and Qasim over on all his socials. He's at Qasim Aslam. And go back and listen to previous episodes, and we will certainly leave links in the show notes here to our Perpetual Traffic YouTube channel. That's perpetualtraffic.com/YouTube, as well as all the links and the resources that we mentioned in this week's show are at perpetualtraffic.com. So on behalf of my awesome co-host, Qasim Aslam,
peace.
Until next show, see ya.